Welcome to Just Relationships, the show that offers you concrete ways to make your relationships better. Whether it's your boss, your spouse, your children, or your friends, the quality of your relationships in life directly affects how you feel about yourself and the success you achieve. Your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer, a psychotherapist, telecoach, author, and seminar leader, will interview top experts to help you learn to manage this essential part of your life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer.
Greetings to you. Today is a departure from our usual programming, and that is that I have invited our station manager, Shawn Novatt, to interview me for a change. And the reason I asked him to interview me is because, my dear friends, this is my last two-part series for Just Relationships. After 34 years, I have decided to retire from radio, and Just Relationships has been my baby for 34 years. I have loved every minute of it, talking to you about relationships, because relationships, as you've heard multiple times in my intro, are everything. They are everything to do with life. We all must relate to ourselves, to others, to the world around us. And how we do that relating makes all the difference in the quality of our lives and the lives of the people around us, whether they're intimates or gas station attendants. It's always about relationships. So I am very pleased to introduce you to Mr. Shawn Novatt, station manager of WHPC.
Hello, Duffy. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. And before we even get started, I just want to say congratulations on that amazing 34-year run. This show, I think I've only been here for about a third of your run. I've been here about 7 years, but the show, I think, has been fabulous. It's tackled topics that I never even knew existed, and I appreciate everything you've done for this radio station and helping us win all the awards we've won over the last few years, especially. So thank you for your time, and thank you for having me as your final guest host, I guess, however you want to phrase it.
Yes. You're very welcome. You're very welcome, Shawn, because I think that your way of being in the world, how you relate to people, has been a very, very big part of it. And of your success and the success of WHPC, because you have been very clear as the manager of the people who work for WHPC. You have always been very clear and very direct and very assertive in what you wanted, setting very clear expectations and explaining why you have those expectations. And when people did not meet up to those expectations, you have explained why it's a problem. You have simply reiterated the goal for WHPC of excellence, and why it's important to adhere to certain rules. You have given people always a heads up for any expectations. You have explained why certain things are mandatory and certain things are not. And your style has been always very serious, business-minded, but at the same time, kind and friendly.
Well, thank you for saying that.
I very much admire you for that, because in one of my other professional endeavors is corporate training in the human relations area, teaching people how to build successful teams, teaching managers how to inspire and motivate their people, and to always remember that every manager has a dual function, and that is task and relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And whether that manager is a station manager, a corporate manager, a manager as a teacher, a manager as a parent, it is always the dual function of management, the task and the people doing the task. So if you have a parent who says, okay, we have to, you have to brush your teeth.
Mm-hmm.
That's a mandate. And let's do it now. Let's do it while you're not so tired. We chose the favorite kind of toothpaste you like. And let's remember to always do it. So if you always remember, people, whenever you are a manager in any sense of the word, it is imperative to balance the task with the relationship, with the people doing the task. And then you're going to find the most excellence that you need. What do you think about that, Shawn?
I agree with you. I think what you touched on earlier in that little statement was, coming up with the rules, but more importantly, explaining why the rule exists. So, for example, you're in school, you are told no running in the halls, and you get yelled at if you run in the halls. But nobody explains to the students, we don't want you to run in the halls because we don't want you to knock into other people, fall down, slip, break something. There's a reason you're not supposed to run in the halls. And I feel like sometimes rules are created, laws, even in government, are created. And sometimes they're just haphazard. There's no reason for it. So if the reason is given, it might change people's minds as to why that law or rule is in place. So I think that was a valid statement that you made.
Well, I'm glad you... And you think that was valid?
Yeah. No, a lot of people don't think like that. They're just like, here's the rule, and go with it.
Right. And I will put it even more specific. People, remember the word because. Because is a magic word. Because.
But not,
I would like you to do this because.
But it can't be because I said so.
Right. Exactly. It can't be because I said so. We're not looking at despotism, and we're not looking at arbitrary rules. We're looking at reasonable rules for a reason. And that's for everything. That is in your intimate relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Would you mind lowering your voice because it's too loud for my ears? I don't like a certain volume or a certain pitch. Not you're talking too loud.
It's true.
So we always want to look at the difference between the I versus the you statements. And unfortunately, most people speak in you statements. You're talking too loud. You're rude. You're this. You're that. Instead of speaking from the heart, which is, it's me. I need you to just lower your voice if you can, because that volume is a little too high for me to hear you.
So as we finish up your 34-year run here, I think the number one question I have is, why did you call the show Just Relationships?
Yeah. It was so funny because it's just relationships. It's all about relationships. That's what I want to talk about, is relationships. And so I said, well, that's the name of the game, relationships. And then the idea of just relationships, because just relationships is a double entendre. Just from the word justice. We need to have just relationships. There needs to be justice, personal justice, social justice. I'm all about justice. And that is the nature of a healthy relationship, Shawn, that it is mutual. And when I say mutual, that doesn't mean exactly equal. For instance, for me as a psychotherapist, my relationship with my patients is very mutual. And how can you say that? Because there's an even exchange. I offer you my expertise and my time, and you offer me payment. And so that evens our relationship. So mutuality doesn't have to be equal. As I said before, the gas station attendant. Yes, I state what I want. You give me what I want. And it's an even and fair exchange. And when my clients would say to me, "Oh, Dr. Duffy, I pay you, to be nice to me and to empathize with me and all of that. And so it doesn't mean anything." And I tell them just that. You are paying for my expertise and my time, but my heart is free. My heart is free. I give you my heart. And I think, Shawn, people can tell the difference when you give them your heart, when you live in this world in an open-hearted and open-minded way.
That's very deep.
Yeah.
But I agree. I absolutely agree with you. And you don't even think of having a relationship with the gas station attendant. Like you pull up, you're just asking them to do what they want to do. But that is a form of a relationship. It's not an intimate relationship. At least I hope not, unless you happen to be married to the gas station attendant.
Yeah.
But it is a relationship. You're having a relationship with the person at the checkout counter at the grocery store. It's a quick and hopefully interaction. Well, what's the word I'm looking for? It's hopefully not a stressful relationship, because the only stressful part should be handing over your money. But it is a form of a relationship, and I think people don't even realize that.
Thank you. I take that so for granted, and I think it is worth saying. I remember in the years I did a lot of corporate training and I did a lot of business travel, and I would be on a plane for hours, get a ride from the airport, arrive in the hotel, and the receptionist would not even look at me.
No eye contact.
I have any number of pet peeves, Shawn, and we don't have time to go into all of them, but I will tell you that one of my pet peeves is when receptionists are not receptive. That is their job. Receptionist to be receptive. And when medical personnel, when we go into a medical office, they don't know enough to look at you, call you by name. A smile would be lovely. Okay. So I will say to them, if whether it's wait staff or anyone, I will look at them and I will say hello, rather than the hotel receptionist won't look, and I'm tired, I'm weary, but just a look and a smile. The wait staff, say hello before you say, "What do you want?" Say hello.
I think people forget that there's humans. That
Exactly.
Sometimes when you go to a hotel check-in desk, you're thinking you're talking to a robot, but you're not. You're talking to somebody else who has feelings and issues and whatever else is going on in their life. But sometimes in that role, you have to block it out. And I use that same philosophy here at the radio station. So, we have students, obviously, that are working here at WHPC. And I try to tell them when they go into the on-air studio to do their shows, you have to try to block out whatever else is happening in your life. So for that hour or 2 hours, however long you're on the air, when the studio door closes, your personal life and personal problems need to stay outside the door. And you have a job to perform and be entertaining on the radio. And if you can't do that, that's when you call in sick or you take a day off or whatever you need to do. Because even the big name radio personalities, and again, I'm using radio as an example, but I think this goes for all jobs. The big name radio personalities, the Elvis Durans on Z100, one of my idols in the radio industry, he does a 4-hour show 5 days a week. I'm sure there's stuff going on in his life that he's not going to talk about on the air. He talks about things that are personal, but there are things that are private. There's a difference between personal and private. And if you can't block out the private for 4 hours to be able to perform, then you need to take that day off because you have a job to perform. So if your job is receptionist at a hotel, you need to be ready to perform the tasks. And that includes eye contact and a little bit of friendliness at least, right?
Absolutely. And the term is compartmentalization, Shawn. Compartmentalization. And sometimes people over compartmentalize and they try to take any unhappy feelings and put them on the shelf and put them on the shelf permanently, repress them. But compartmentalization in this way for a 4-hour shift is very excellent, very, very healthy. I remember years ago when I was a full-time college teacher, and I was going through a divorce during one semester. And the last class for all of my semesters, I would just have a sit down and say, how did we do? What was it like being here? What was the most important thing you learned? What was it like being in this class? And my students, I remember this one semester said, you are always so even-tempered, just so calm and present. And, it's just wonderful. And I said, well, guys, guess what? You didn't know it, but I went through a divorce this semester. And here's the deal. I was not being a phony. I did not want to foist onto my students my personal problems. That was not the role. And so if we stay in role, with that expression, stay in your own lane. If we stay in our role, my role here with you is to be your teacher. And that's what it's called for. So to be able to do that, and something else very interesting, Shawn, my students, I've taught at Nassau Community College, I've taught at Adelphi, Queensborough, many colleges, St. Joseph's, and SUNY Farmingdale. And that my students would say to me, we are so lucky that we've had the nicest students, the nicest co-students in this class. It's so amazing that of all the students at these colleges, that we could have such nice people. And I would just smile and nod. And after a while, someone would say, well, wait a minute, maybe it has something to do with Dr. Duffy. Maybe it has to do with how she's relating to us and how she's helping us relate to each other. And it's so interesting. You see, I do believe so much, Shawn, that we are capable of bringing out the best in others. And I believe that while people have a lot of angst, and there is so much angst in our society, especially today, anxiety is up, depression is up, suicide is up. We're in an epidemic of loneliness, that we see the dark side, we see the despair, we see the frustration, we see the anger, but that we can always remember that human beings are basically good. I believe, as Anne Frank of all people would say, human beings are basically good. And what we want to do is to bring out the best in them. And in so doing, bringing out the best in ourselves. And how do we do that? And that is, number one, I think, we create a safe environment for people. We give them space to express themselves and show who they really are, what's underneath it all. And I used to teach customer service. So what do you learn in customer service? How do you handle the irate customer? What are you taught? You're taught to listen, not interrupt, to state your positive intention. I want to help you. I want to do the best I can by you. And whatever they say, not to judge it as you're crazy that you don't like these shoes. Someone else loves these shoes. Nobody else returned this style but you. What's wrong with you? Versus, oh, okay, you don't like that. I understand, and I want to return them for you. So it is really just allowing people to express their angst, but only for a little while, Shawn. Only for a little while. If someone is talking X-rated, if they're making those you accusatory statements. You listen. If it's garden variety annoyance, and most people don't know how to make I statements, they just make you statements. If it's garden variety, you let it go a little bit, and you just reiterate, I'm listening. I want to hear what you have to say without commenting on their very poor delivery. Have you noticed, Shawn, that after a while, people shift?
No, absolutely. Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
No, if they're getting a reaction that they're not expecting, they sometimes shift their way that they're thinking. If I start yelling at you, I expect you to yell back at me. But if you're not yelling back at me, you might get a different reaction from me.
Yes, exactly. And to just, again, be responsive. That is the name of the game. That human beings, I believe, need to do two things. We need to be assertive and we need to be responsive. So asserting means I have a sense, if I'm healthy, I have a sense of what I want, and I have a sense of that I deserve to have what I want, as long as it doesn't hurt anyone else directly. Although that can be true, I just have a caveat here around that to act so as not to hurt. I'll give you an example. Say a woman has school-age children, and she wants to go back to college, and her husband says, I don't want you to go back to college because I want the dinner on time, this time. And I want you to devote yourself to the family. And what if you meet guys at college? You can't do that. I don't want that. And
is this conversation taking place in 2023 or 1953?
Well, one would think, right? Unfortunately, we are living in a time warp, and many men who have those fears would shame their wives.
I agree.
Into it, try to control and shame, but very often bad behavior is based on fear. So if he would be honest enough to say, well, what if you meet other guys and you decide you love someone and you leave me? Very few people are that open, but that is where, Brené Brown talks about being vulnerable, allowing yourself to be vulnerable. And that's very heartwarming for someone to say, I'm afraid if you go there, you're going to meet someone you prefer over me and you'll leave me, rather than, how dare you go there? How dare you be with those people? That's awful of you. So what repels people and what brings them closer? So the woman might say, well, I'm really sorry that you have this fear. I don't have this fear. I trust myself. I love you. And darling, I am going to go back to college. I am. And I would like your support because I want to participate in the wide world. We have done a wonderful job with their children. They're almost launched, and I really want to take part in the larger world. Will you help me? You see, these are ways to get what you want. You see, remember, we must always be both assertive and responsive. I hear what you're saying. I hear your fear. And I want to reassure you that this is really about my education and not meeting guys. And I am loyal to you. I want you. I love you. So many people, when I teach assertiveness, which I've done for decades, assertiveness training, I always say that it must be met with responsiveness. Because if all I do is talk about what I want, and I'm not interested in what you want, that's being aggressive, Shawn. That's not being assertive. So many people misunderstand what assertiveness is. So what do you think about that combination of assertiveness and responsiveness?
I agree. It's you're repeating what you just said. I hear you. I understand what you're trying to tell me, but this is why I'm going to do what I want to do is an important thing, rather than just saying, well, I'm doing it and just marching out of the conversation, because that just creates more conflict in the relationship. So we only have a few moments left in this first show. So how would you define a good relationship?
Well, a good relationship is just that. You have two healthy, assertive people who are also responsive, who put on the table what they would like. It's, I would prefer. Okay, not I demand, because if I put on the table what I would like, that has to be in the form of a request if it has to do with your behavior, and not a demand. And if I say I would like this and you don't have the right to say no, then it is a demand. So we need to make requests, and even with children, to say something like, you have to clean your room before dinner. You can do it just before dinner, or you can do it when you get home from school, but you will be cleaning your room before dinner. Now, in that case, you don't say, is that all right? Okay. How many parents say, I want you to do this. Okay. And then the child says, it's not okay.
Yeah,
they
no.
think they can say it's not okay. So even when you make a demand as a parent, there needs to be responsiveness around it. So we only have a minute left for this show. So the idea of a healthy relationship, as I open the show, is mutual. It's where people know themselves. Most people, Shawn, are not self-aware. I believe we have an obligation to look inside and see what's really going on, because we all have a shadow. I'll talk about that next week. We all have a shadow. And most people deny their shadow and they hide it. Those are all the things we're ashamed of. But if we say, I really feel badly that my best friend won the lottery and I didn't. That's the truth. I don't take away from you, but I want certain things as well. There's such a thing as healthy envy as opposed to unhealthy envy. If I envy someone, that indicates to me that I want what they have. Not that I'm going to take it away from them, but that it indicates to me that I want this. Therefore, I'm going to galvanize my energy to get it, my version of it, my way, not taking anything away from you. So now I'm going to go back to being the host, and I'm going to say thank you so much, Shawn, for interviewing me. I look forward to next week, the finale of Just Relationships, where we go more deeply into what it means to have a good and healthy and happy relationship. And this is Dr. Duffy Spencer saying goodbye for now and wishing you great relationships.